the vector for infection also varies by the operator. So the people who write the malware aren't the same as the people who go and get victims to install it. This is a malware as a service, very commodified ecosystem. So the malware developer gives the customer a SaaS portal to log into where they can customize the malware to their liking, get a portable executable, and then try and convince people to download that executable. And they will do that in a number of ways. Some of the most popular are through YouTube videos that will like have a link in the comments to download something, and they'll be for free Photoshop, free Discord bot rating tool, free Robux, free Grand Theft Auto 5 something, free whatever, free thing that you have to pay for that is software. And then you'll click a link in the comments that's like mega.nz or something, or a torrent. You download it, you run it, and it's a stealer. It's going to run that malware that I talked about. Maybe also install the thing that it promised it would, but also run the malware that it's laced with. Another popular one is through fraudulent ads on search engines.
This is the Secure Cyber Connect podcast with Jay Adamson and Warren Atkinson, where we're joined by information, cybersecurity, technology, and talent acquisition professionals who share their journeys, unique perspectives, and offer advice and guidance. Our topics on this episode will be how are infostealers and session hijackers outsmarting MFA solutions. Today, we're pleased to be joined by Nick Ascoli. Nick is the Director of Product Strategy at Flare and an experienced threat researcher who's recognized for his expertise in data leaks, reconnaissance, and detection engineering. He has a broad variety of experience across engineering, advising, and consulting for many global companies within the Fortune 1000 space, and designing solutions to problems which plague cyber defenders and their organizations. Nick is also an active member of the cybersecurity community, contributing to open source projects, regularly appearing on the other podcasts such as Cyberwire or Simply Cyber, as well as regularly speaking at conferences such as B-Sides, DEFCON, and SANS, amongst many others. Nick, welcome to the Secure Cyber Connect podcast, and thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you, gents. I'm happy to be here.
So we always kick things off by just asking if you could give us a very brief high-level overview of some of the key themes we'll be exploring in our discussions today.
Well, I think we can keep it fluid, but I'd like to focus on cybercrime. Specifically, infostealers have been fueling maybe a renaissance is the right word in cybercrime today, which is like in the cybercrime of 10 years ago, bad guys had to break into things. They had to use post-exploitation frameworks, which many still do, but they had to get very creative and very technical. In the current landscape of cybercrime, logging in is much more popular than hacking in, which is to say bad guys kind of just walk through the front door these days. Whereas before, maybe they didn't. So cybercrime has been democratized. This fueled mostly by a dramatic rise in popularity of stolen credentials, mostly harvested through infostealer malware. And I can give a very simple overview first of what infostealer malware is and all this stuff, but that's what I want to talk about. I'd like to focus on stealers.
And a couple of icebreakers just to kick things off. Was there a particular challenge, something that was significant that shaped your views on cyber that maybe happened to you early on in your career?
I I didn't get into cyber as a researcher. I got in as an engineer, as a consultant first. And there wasn't I can't say there was one thing. It was like an addition, a compounding effect of getting to be involved in several, tangentially involved in several actual incident response events, and looking at I guess there are a couple things that come to mind of getting to look at a ransom note that a bad guy left on a machine, or back when cryptojacking was a thing, a cryptojacking note that someone left where they're like, hey, sorry for infecting your machine, feel free to delete this, but just trying to make a little money. That kind of stuff, seeing text written by a cybercriminal who was willing to do the crime, who was willing to break into a machine and drop something on there, and I saw these things relatively early in my career, were immediately so fascinating to me. Not just the technical, steps behind the attack they committed, but who are they? who is willing to do this? What happens in one's life that leads you down there? So I was always kind of interested in like the cyber psychology, which led me into research, like understanding the cyber criminals and how they operate, and has blossomed into a career that now much more involves threat research, being involved in the monitoring and hopefully impacting of the cybercrime ecosystem, making crime more difficult, and helping protect people from said cybercrime. So I started off in engineering, just a very curious and passionate cybersecurity professional. And getting exposed a few times to the actual products of a cyber attack made me very, very curious about the people who actually sit behind it. So now I get to spend a lot more time focused on, cybercrime and cyber research to help influence, the work I do, but also out of a completely authentic curiosity of how things work.
And what about a particular mistake maybe that you made? Was there a lesson that came from that you've took with you?
A mistake that I've made is the one that always comes to mind, which is one that everyone makes very early in their career, is saying yes to everything, not taking an ounce of a moment to yourself. And you know what? I'll be more specific. Not ever taking a vacation. Like early in my career, I was not a big vacation guy. I'd like to remind the audience, it is important to make time for yourself. It is important to take time for yourself and actually relax. You will work better if you take breaks. If you give yourself a moment to breathe in between things, you will be a better worker. So also for the managers out there, encourage your staff to take breaks because you will have better staff. And for the staff, you will be a better team member if you give yourself a rest every once in a while.
No, I certainly appreciate you sharing that. And look, undoubtedly, you've spent many years peeling back layers of cybercrime in darkest corners of the internet, for instance. So what's been the most jaw-dropping or unexpected insight that you've uncovered when watching underground market that perhaps other defenders should know about?
I think something that's been interesting is something that was striking maybe is the difference between the way the Eastern European and like Russian cybercrime underground operates versus the Western US, UK, Canadian cyber underground operates. They're very, I always kind of imagined the cybercrime undergrounds before, getting deep into the research end of them as being cross collaborative. But it turns out there is some cross collaboration. There's Western cybercrime gangs who will become affiliates of a Russian ransomware group to use their ransomware in some attack. But really, they're very divided communities. And though both of them tend to not attack Russia quite as much, both don't want to make the GRU upset with them in general. So there is the most striking difference between the two is the Russian cybercrime underground is serious. These people do not post memes at nearly the same frequency as the English-speaking cybercrime underground. They do have fun. They do make jokes, but like it's a very serious place. You need to know someone. People need to vouch for you. It is a place that is meant for serious players versus the English-speaking cybercrime underground. Think the very popular forums like breach forums where people go to, there's always drama among the leadership that's very public. It goes up, it goes down. There's half of the places jokes and pranks and things that are not for monetary gain, but are just for that members are doing, hacking, posting for clout. There's a lot less need to be legit, a lot less need to have someone vouch for you on the English-speaking cybercrime world. And it seems like a lot more kind of like young hackers who are exploring the internet and sort of like tumbled into cybercrime versus in the Eastern cybercrime communities, it's a business. It's a serious business. It's more, there's more logistics, administrative support, this kind of thing. So that's been an interesting thing to track, and hasn't changed much really in the last, 5 years or so.
That's really enlightening. We appreciate you sharing there. And we're certainly hopeful that some of those younger adversaries can sort of change their ways and hopefully sort of come into the public or private sector in the years to come, especially with all developments across the globe at the moment. We're certainly seeing pays in the public sector domain increase. That's certainly a great way to encourage those adversaries to flip hats as such.
Yeah, that's a topic that doesn't get a lot of love, but should, is like, how do you redirect youth from cybercrime to not cybercrime, to using, the challenge is, and I've, through my work, I've investigated or learned so much about or de-anonymized or whatever cybercriminals from various walks of life. And something they all have in common is like a genuine curiosity and like a real flame inside them, a real passion for the technical things that they're curious about. Unfortunately, through whatever circumstances, they end up funneling that down the wrong, down the path of crime. But there is a passion in there that can probably be redirected more productively. And maybe we haven't spent enough time as an industry trying to figure out how to do that. Because really if you look at breach forums, if you look at these forums where the cyber criminals who are probably, 16 to 25 post, it's a lot of the same people. The forums may have hundreds of thousands of members, some of them millions of members, but really most of the damage is done by a small handful of cyber criminals. And redirecting them earlier in their life, they get arrested, you learn about their life story, they're a seemingly nice kid from a well-to-do neighborhood who stumbled into cybercrime. There's got to be, sorry to go on the tangent, but there's got to be something we can do to stop the problem, to really stop the root of the problem, which is people doing the crime in the first place. We have to focus on the defense because it's in front of us today. But perhaps we should pontificate a bit as an industry on how do we redirect the actors themselves.
I certainly agree with there. A lot of individuals are perhaps sort of misguided, for instance. So we need to do more as an industry to retain that talent at an early age and spot it. Here in the UK, we're certainly making steps. We're engaging with not just our academia, but junior school individuals between the ages sort of 8 to 12 before they're influenced by the digital world as such. And now, just taking it back a step a little bit, of course, cybercrime is a huge, noisy, and very broad term. What does it really mean today, and what are the key activities that defenders should be watching for?
The cybercrime today is, as I suggested, different from what it was in the past. Today, it is fueled, predominantly by stolen credentials and stolen data. The big shifts that defenders need to be aware of, that you can take meaningful action against in the present, is the technical attacks of the past, and I kind of alluded to this before, aren't necessarily representative of the future of cybercrime. It's not getting more technical necessarily. In fact, maybe in the early 2020s, late 2010s, a lot of companies did digital transformation. Moved from on-prem data centers to SaaS tools to cloud tools, moved things away from their environment where they had to manage all of the network, configurations behind it, the routes, the access controls, whatever, and moved it to a SaaS tool that does all of that for you. Threat actors have taken note of this, obviously. And it's much easier for them to log into a SaaS tool and just click export in the admin portal than it is to, bop around 15 servers, find the backend database of the application they're targeting, exfiltrate that, and then figure out a way to get it off, figure out a way to monetize it and get it off the systems and clean up their tracks. The SaaSification of the business world has made cybercrime so much easier. So locking down external credentials, understanding the software that your employees use, These are the things now that are very important. A lot of ransomware groups, and this is especially common for lower tech, less skilled, the kind of like, cybercrime forums actors. They are extorting companies. They are ransoming data, but they're not doing it the way ransomware groups used to. They're not infecting machines, deploying ransomware, and then asking you to pay to not only uninfect the machines and decrypt everything, and then also delete the data they stole, but they're just stealing the data. They're not, deploying ransomware is very complicated. It's expensive. There's a lot of effort, a lot of backend, a lot of technology and expertise and management that goes into maintaining a ransomware victim where you've encrypted all their files on their machines, and then you're going to have to decrypt them when they pay. It's easier to just steal the data, infect, nothing, not leave anything behind, and just say, hey, I stole the data, pay me, or I give the data away for free. This is so much easier for threat actors to do, and many are doing it. So ransomware groups, there are some ransomware groups now that do both. They do the old-fashioned ransomware and they extort. And then there's some groups that just extort. They're just extortion groups now. The technical barriers to entry with digital transformation have gotten so much lower. So the modern cybercrime ecosystem is focused on low effort, high monetization, and high volume activities because they know most people won't pay. So you got to get 100 victims to get 10 to pay or something. So volume is the name of the game in the world of cybercrime today. And there's many, many more cybercriminals than maybe there used to be. That said, also a lot more law enforcement action, a lot more takedowns, a lot more arrests, a lot more investigation. So there is a tit for tat that's going on, but the cybercrime ecosystem continues to evolve, in spite of takedowns and arrests and all these sort of things.
I appreciate you sharing the perspective. We've certainly seen an uplift in organizations, unfortunately, forgetting the basics when they've transitioned to the cloud. They assume that it's secure and they forget everything they've learned over the last 2 or 3 decades, which is concerning. But I think we're moving in the right direction as the industry. Now, are there any other tactics or perhaps sort of shifts in targets that cybercriminals are focused on at the moment? You've obviously mentioned that they're still doing ransom, of course, but they're trying to exfiltrate data instead. But is there anything else that they're focusing on at this point in time?
That's a great question, Warren. The reason I like it is because it allows me to highlight something that also I don't think gets the appropriate attention, and is an important kind of like myth to pop in the world of dark web cyber criminals, which is that not meant, especially in the commodity cybercrime, the people who aren't technically skilled but are committing cybercrime en masse that are just trying to make a quick buck, basically, which is most cyber criminals are not skilled. They're just trying to make a quick buck and they have access to the tools to do it, basically. They don't target necessarily anyone. They pull down credentials from Stealer logs, from ULPs. They pull down exposed hosts from Shodan or some other IoT search engine. Most cyber criminals are opportunistic, and they will automatically test all the credentials they get against all the portals that they can log into. And only once they have a successful hit will they go, okay, cool, let's see who I got. Not I'm going to target, the bank of wherever, and I'm going to spend 6 months trying to get into that bank. They're testing every credential and waiting for one to hit and then going, cool, I got a victim. I wonder who they are. I'll go check now. So most crimes in the world of cybercrime, like if you're looking for someone targeting you and talking about targeting you as a company on cybercrime forums or something, you're probably not going to find that many people explicitly mentioning you unless you're a Fortune 500 company. But it doesn't mean you're not being targeted. It maybe means no one has you in mind, but you are just as fair game of a technical victim as any other company if credentials of yours show up, if machines of yours show up. Cybercrime is predominantly opportunistic and not necessarily targeted, if that makes sense. So I'm happy to get to say that. So the shifts that happen are shifts in techniques, are shifts in what data is valuable to them, but not necessarily as much in victimology in like commodity cybercrime.
Yeah, it's definitely become a more scattergun approach and a numbers game for sure. Just talking a little bit about so the info stealers as such, we've obviously, as you've outlined, we've seen a decline in ransomware, but I think in terms of obviously the business model for these guys, we've talked about the volume of stolen data and ease of operation. Is there anything else that makes this business model quite as profitable as it is for the bad guys?
Yeah, there's a plethora of audiences for infostealer data that all have different goals in mind and different ideas of how to use the data that make the commodification very easy for the people who harvest stolen data. So let me explain what an infostealer is in case anyone in the audience hasn't stumbled across them yet. So infostealers, an infostealer, stealer malware, these are all the same thing. And they represent a flavor of malware that when installed on your computer, as the name suggests, will steal as many things as they can. So when an infostealer infects a computer, it's going to steal the credentials from the browser. So whenever you click, Google Chrome asks, hey, would you like to save this username and password to Facebook or YouTube or whatever you logged into, and you click yes, that is saved, onto your computer. And stealers will steal them. They'll steal them from all your browser-based password managers. They will also steal cookies and session tokens. If you're not familiar with what a browser session is, the reason you close YouTube and open it up 6 weeks later and you're still logged in is because a session is stored on your device, a cookie that tells YouTube, hey, it's still me, and it has an expiration date. Eventually, maybe in a couple months, maybe in a year, it's going to expire and you're going to have to relog in. But it's going to keep you logged in for a very long time so that you don't, so you have a good experience when you use the service. Many services are like this and have very long session times. But a session is already authenticated. And we'll come back to session takeover in a minute, but it will also take files from your desktop, files from downloads. It'll take autofill data when you're filling out your address in a form and it automatically pops in. That's autofills. It'll steal all of those. It'll take the browser history, every site you visited that's, unless it's been cleared, it's all there for the taking. And then it will harvest things more creatively. Some, threat actors, some malware families and operators are more focused on maybe crypto fraud. So they will have their stealers steal information from crypto wallets you might have on your device or save to your browser. They'll try and steal two-factor token configurations through browser extensions that are doing two-factor for you. The list goes on. All the things you would expect a cybercriminal would want to take from your computer are the things that stealers take. And they are then, they're stole. The vector for infection also varies by the operator. So the people who write the malware aren't the same as the people who go and get victims to install it. This is a malware as a service, very commodified ecosystem. So the malware developer gives the customer a SaaS portal to log into where they can customize the malware to their liking, get a portable executable, and then try and convince people to download that executable. And they will do that in a number of ways. Some of the most popular are through YouTube videos that will have a link in the comments to download something, and they'll be for free Photoshop, free Discord, rating tool, free Robux, free Grand Theft Auto 5 something, free whatever, free thing that you have to pay for that is software. And then you'll click a link in the comments that's like mega.nz or something, or a torrent. You download it, you run it, and it's a stealer. It's going to run that malware that I talked about. Maybe also install the thing that it promised it would, but also run the malware that it's laced with. Another popular one is through fraudulent ads on search engines. So if you type in, if you go in the browser and type in install Python, it's going to give you the website for Python. You can install the package. Now, what cybercriminals will do is create a fake domain that looks, similar, but they don't usually actually look that similar in practice. Some of them are better than others. And they'll buy a similar looking domain to python.org or something, and they'll make a Google ad for that site so that when a user searches install Python, their sponsored site shows up first, and it looks exactly the same as the one below. So imagine how many people search install Python per day. Is it thousands, hundreds of thousands, millions? Will click that link, download that fake Python just because it's the first result in Google and infect themselves with the stealer. We've seen campaigns like this many, many times in the world of stealers. So, and each, the guy doing the YouTube comments, the person doing the Google ad, these are all different operators who are just customers of the malware. Their job is to get people to infect themselves. And once they do, it steals all this stuff. It sends it to them. And they maybe one of these operators collects 10,000 infected machines per week. They'll bundle these up and then they'll give them to their audience. Maybe people subscribe. Maybe everyone has a different sort of model for monetization, and they'll give these out to their ecosystem of buyers or users or consumers or whatever. And then those people who consume the malware will then go commit fraud with it. They'll go take the logins and test them. They'll find, whatever, some popular e-commerce service account to defraud. They'll some of them are crypto scammers and want crypto stuff. Every consumer, some of them are ransomware groups who want a way into a company and they'll look for exposed virtual desktop services or something. Everyone's got a different goal in mind for what they're using the data for, and then they monetize it sort of down the line.
So let's talk a little bit about the monetization from the infection through to the dark web. The dark web seems to a lot of people unexplainable, mysterious, foreboding. How organized and professional are these criminal marketplaces in reality? And talk a little bit about the monetization side on the dark web.
There are kind of every situation you would imagine exists. There are extremely organized, reliable cybercriminals who only sell working accounts, who maybe form unique relationships with more sophisticated actors than themselves, maybe ransomware groups, maybe extortion groups, and they'll provide them with a unique relationship and with pay, functional accounts that they find on the dark web. And there are also many, many, many Telegram groups that are just people spamming and scamming all day. Millions of messages we see across all of these groups on a daily basis that are just people advertising, stolen whatever account, stolen rewards points for whatever. And I'm sure more than half of them are scamming, not actually they don't actually have the data. They don't have anything to give you. They want you to pay them first, and then they will not.
Trying to scam the scammer.
Exactly. There's no honor among thieves, but there are kind of levels of honor in the world of cybercrime, where there are actors, there are marketplaces, and there are groups that have a stronger reputation of being reliable, of being serious, of not messing around, of not scamming. And in order to get to the places they operate, you need an invite, you need a vouch, you need someone to say you're legit. You need these are places that are serious, harder to get into, and are organized, are very organized parts of the world of cybercrime, where there's small groups of people. But most of the world of cybercrime is scattered, is disorganized, is very opportunistic, and is very scammy, very, very kind of scammy fly-by-night operators who disappear after one good victim they get.
Do you think that's going to evolve? Do you think it will evolve to resemble legitimate e-commerce platforms and have that user experience, that efficiency that we see on the web itself?
I think for the infostealer ecosystem, as an example, it certainly has evolved to be a more robust, SaaS solution that more customers can take advantage of. That said, it's almost like both. There are as the world of stealers and the operators who buy them and get people to infect themselves, as they get more legit and organized and have more money flowing through their operations, they become a more robust business. But that means they're producing more data that the people down the line buy, and those people are more scattered. It's like the more this gets organized and grows economically, the top of the funnel, the larger the bottom gets, and the more disorganized it gets because there's more people coming in, more opportunistic cyber criminals, more of everything. So it's like both. As the more sophisticated actors continue to evolve, it invites more of the low level cybercrime that happens.
And how do you fight back on this? I mean, yeah, what are some of the more effective defense tactics that organizations can implement against infostealers?
Well, against infostealers specifically, there's two important defense mechanisms. One is on the endpoint itself. This is all of the classic techniques that you would think to find malware are functional against infostealer malware. Signature-based detection, very creative Sigma rules, or whatever the flavor of SIM you're using, very, very creative detection logic for the stealers. Lots of groups write fantastic stealer analysis reports of the different families, and you can get specific detection logic from them. And many AV vendors who serve the enterprise are great. EDR and AV vendors are great at detecting infostealers. The problem is a lot of the corporate attacks we've seen in the last year, like the individual who attacked all of those Snowflake tenants. That was how the Ticketmaster hack, the Santander hack, they had 160 victims. All of those were from infected devices that predominantly were not corporate machines. So the corporate machines are already pretty well versed at protecting against infostealers. But those attacks happened against corporate SaaS services, but came from someone's personal device. Because a lot of people, in many cases, it's someone's kid installs something on a shared computer that their guardian logged in on one time to update an expense report or something, but that cookie's still there. That credential was saved to the browser or whatever, so that the access is still done. It doesn't matter if it's a corporate machine or not. The person's device might as well be a Chromebook. They're just SSOing into something and getting to all their tools through the browser. So if you can get to it through another browser, you have everything. So that's what was the root of the question? Oh, the defense mechanism. I got so far down that rabbit hole, I forgot where I was headed. But the other route. So if you've got corporate devices covered, there's still this gap of personal devices that might be infected that have a corporate something on it that can lead to a larger compromise. This is best handled with solutions. I hate to plug aggressively here, so I'll plug very briefly. But this is kind of what Flare is meant for. Products like a Flare that are monitoring these parts of the cybercrime world and finding these logs that might impact you, finding these leaked sessions, finding the things that would impact your company, not in a way that you would assume could happen directly, but are left to a more creative cybercriminal compromising a personal device and finding a route in, which, as we've seen in the last couple of years, has become very, very popular as a method of getting in. So a combination of protecting your devices from malware in the same ways you would expect, and then B, for those devices that do end up getting infected, because the infostealers it's a cat and mouse game between malware development and malware detection, where there will be a week, a few weeks, a few months where some family of stealer is successfully evading every antivirus vendor. So you still need the detection on the other end, which is I'm protecting my devices from getting infected in the first place. But if they get infected and I don't know about it, or if they get infected and it's too late, actually monitoring the places those credentials get posted with a tool like Flare is how you cover the other end. And that other end has been the way in for many prominent attacks in the last 2 years.
And Nick, why do you feel cybercriminals are increasingly favouring session hijacking over the password stealing, for instance, or bypassing MFA?
Yeah, that's why. I mean, that you said it. The bypassing MFA is the thing. Passwords are very valuable for popular consumer social media tools that don't have two-factor for cyber criminals. But anything interesting that has corporate data on it is probably going to have a second factor. Is going to have an SMS two-factor, an app-based two-factor, a something that makes the password not helpful for the cybercriminal. A session, like I suggested earlier, a session is why you stay logged into a service for days or weeks or months, or why your bank kicks you out after 5 minutes because their sessions expire very quickly. Those sessions are already authenticated. So if a cybercriminal gets their hands on a session, they walk, and you've already authenticated with two-factor, then they don't have to re-authenticate. All they have to do is they have lots of tools for this. They'll take your session, put it in an anti-detect browser or use one of their cookie checker tools, and basically recreate your device, which doesn't take a lot of effort on their part. This is mostly automated and is a couple clicks in a tool. They'll recreate your infected device locally on a fake browser they have. They'll drag and drop the cookie file into that fake, machine's cookie file, and then launch the browser, and they can access everything that you could access that had an active session on it. So that's why you walk right past all of the more difficult defenses to bypass. You don't have to social engineer. You don't have to SIM swap. You don't have to do anything difficult to take over this account. You just drag and drop the cookie file, click a couple buttons in an anti-detect browser, and you've got your crown jewels, a few clicks away from there.
And with that in mind, what else makes detecting these session hijacks so challenging for typical and traditional security teams?
Yeah, it's a good question. There's the reason it's becoming more difficult to detect is the technology for recreating your device on their end, of making their connection look like it's coming from you, is improving, and at this point it's very fluid for a cyber criminal to do. So basically, what it looks like when you take over a session to the web server is, if I took over a session, if I'm a cyber criminal in Poland and I take over a session of someone in Italy, but I don't change my IP, for example, then all of a sudden I'm connecting from Poland and not Italy, and there's probably some software in place that'll go, hey, that doesn't make any sense. This location changed too rapidly. Make this person re-authenticate. And then I'm protected as a user. Now, what cyber criminals do now, when they infect a device, they have all the metadata about it. They can see what graphics card you had, what your IP was, what your hardware profile, what OS version you're running. And they'll recreate this browser footprint to mimic that down to the hardware on the device. And they'll lease a residential IP through a residential proxy near the location of the device's infection. So now when you're connecting to the web server, it looks like you just went to a coffee shop down the street. You didn't change countries, you maybe didn't even change cities. Like, you just moved to a slightly different location in it. And it's not going to make you re-authenticate just because you moved, you went to visit someone who lives near you and opened your laptop, or you went to a coffee shop to work. This is an acceptable practice for many popular web applications. So cyber criminals have creatively gotten around a lot of the anomaly-based detection for stolen accounts, which is why monitoring through in-stealer logs are the actual session values. So if you're looking through in Flare, we have a cookies API. You can pull down cookies that are non-expired, that are specifically session tokens for your app that we've collected in the last 30 seconds or whatever time cadence you like, and be basically deauthorizing and reissuing or forcing password change or whatever on those users as the sessions show up in the wild. So it's to get, if you're doing session takeover prevention from the root, from the sessions that show up in the wild, instead of trying to detect sessions that were taken over, then you prevent the session from being taken over in the first place. And the amount of time a cyber criminal needs who's focused on fraud for your web app, like I said, some cyber criminals will consume stealers and they're focused just on hotel rewards points, harvesting or whatever. They know where to go so quickly, or it's automated. Once they get into the session, they don't need it for more than, maybe a few seconds to get the data they need to continue their scam. Again, it's probably scripted. If not, it's something that they do relatively quickly by hand. So relying on detection after the session has been taken over you should have both. But it will fail as cyber criminals continue to. There will be periods where it fails as cyber criminals continue to adapt their techniques to be, mimicking the root device, very, very impressively. I don't know if there were other parts of your question, but I hope that covered. Those are my thoughts. Yeah.
No, definitely did. And look, I appreciate you engage. You're a regular speaker at events. You host your own podcast. You're also a guest on many others. Are there any emerging cybercrime trends that you think are flying under the radar that perhaps our audience needs to be aware of?
I think session takeover in general, the underground of cookies specifically, is pretty new. It doesn't get a whole lot of attention. It's getting more, which I think is good. But the whole world of account takeover prevention has been focused on credentials for a long time. And credentials are an extremely important part of this equation. But as account protections are improving, cyber criminals are relying more on session takeover. It's just trivially easy to do. That's maybe the emerging thing that I think people should be aware of is if you go on YouTube and type in any of these things, there's all kinds of good videos about how session takeover works. You will be shocked at how simple it is to take over a session. It is straight up a few clicks and a copy and paste of the cookies from the infected device. So this is not to encourage anyone to do it. This is a crime, and you might get caught and get in huge trouble. But this is for defenders to know this is a trivially simple attack to execute and results in an account being taken over in a way that is more difficult to detect than credentials being stuffed into a login portal. So I'm glad it's getting more attention. I certainly think it deserves it as a technique. And it is a beloved tool in the cybercrime, toolbox right now. So I think defenders need to be considering it.
That's brilliant. And looking forward to the future, what developments give you hope that the cybersecurity industry, of course, can keep pace with threats such as infostealers and session hijackers?
Keeping up with cybercriminals is a huge challenge, and I don't have a technical answer to this question where it's like, we need to figure out how to do X or do Y or do Z. I think we need to not stop paying attention, learning from the places that cybercriminals hang out, how they operate is to me, and of course I'm biased. I'm deep into and very passionate about understanding how this underground operates. But understanding it, I think, is one of the keys to defense at large. What are cyber criminals actually saying to each other? What are they actually talking about? What tools are they actually using? Not what can we glean from what we found. This is extremely important, obviously. But in practice, what's really happening, and who are they? Where are they operating from? Why do they do what they do? I think not losing focus on the people behind these operations, and what makes them tick, so to speak, is critical for continuing to mature cyber defenses, because you want your defenses to reflect what the reality is on the ground.
I certainly agree with you there. I think understanding the mindset of the attackers, their motivation, and more importantly, the why, it allows you to position yourself, defend against, and as we mentioned earlier, try and mitigate and encourage those individuals to change hats. And something that myself and Jay, we like to speak about quite often at the back end of our sessions is, protecting the next generation and inspiring them, influence them to enter the industry, not just cybersecurity, but perhaps the AI and wider tech space. And building strong digital habits at a young age is certainly something that we feel is going to be impactful. So from your perspective, are there any emerging areas within tech, AI or cyber, for instance, that you think could excite and engage younger generation to pursue a career in this?
I think, in the cybersecurity space, always there are always interesting technological developments that I hope that people who are passionate about cybersecurity explore more so than they do the aspects of crime. A curious, young, technical, talented developer. I hope they have opportunities and guidance to steer clear of cybercrime as cybersecurity technology continues to develop. But I think there are certainly parts of the AI space that I find very exciting. I think as a young person, the thing I caution is not to let LLMs, as an example, think for you, but use them as a tool for learning in your style. This is an extremely effective use of LLMs, I think, for young people that I haven't seen suggested has any negative impacts. There's all kinds of things of having it write your essays for you is obviously going to make you you're not going to find out you love writing if you never write. You're not going to find out you're a great poet if you never write poetry, if you haven't write your poems for you in school or something. So you certainly want to steer clear of having it do the work for you, but using it as a tool to speak to you in terms you understand, to teach you concepts, to teach you, like in the world of tech, teach you programming, teach you automation. These are things that will serve you through your career no matter what you do. If you're interested in tech now, but end up going into a career completely disconnected from it, knowing basic Python that like an LLM can teach you in terms that you understand better than anything are amazing. Or giving you ideas of things to maybe script or automate in your life or in games you play or in something can help you learn practically. This is a thing that school often struggles with, is applying things you're learning to real life. And this is something that the developing repository of AI tools can help students do on their own. As an aid.
Yeah, I think as you mentioned, it's finding something that's going to be relevant and appealing to them. It's going to resonate at their age. Playing games, getting that advantage, of course, is going to be something that's certainly going to relevate. And AI certainly allowed those individuals that are perhaps facing financial hardship to really sort of get learning and get practical experience as such. So how can we reframe the industry to make it a bit more accessible and inclusive for those at a younger age, or perhaps those that are looking to cross-train and change careers?
Yeah, I think adapting the way we teach is how you make it inclusive. First of all, opening it up to the different methods of learning. There are people who are better hands-on learners. There's people who are better reading learners. I think that the use of LLMs in this case is like a potent and immediately impactful way to adjust content you've created to teach an audience in a certain way that they can then take, plug into those tools, and teach themselves in a way that is maybe more hands-on if they're less of a reader, or the other way around. Explain it to me, in more verbose terms, because I don't understand the application of it. I think adjusting the way we teach will make tech, and cybersecurity specifically, a more inclusive place. In a world where the next generation of students will have been raised with AI tools and aids in the classroom. So you have to adjust teaching to be less for the test, less, multiple choice, and more demonstration of skills, and more lab based, more practical, more authentic. And I hope that technology, it seems like it's going that way, continues to develop in a way that makes this not only accessible to the people who can afford multi-$1,000 trainings, but makes it easily self-trainable to people who can use a free LLM to get the same job done. Helps to reduce the financial barriers you mentioned.
No, that's great. And very briefly, could you perhaps give us 3 pros and 3 cons as for working in threat research, for instance?
Oh man. 3 pros. 1, it doesn't stop. It is so exciting. If you get bored easily, then this is the space for you, because you'll never have a shortage of topics to look into, or groups to research, or malware to analyze, or what have you. What are some other pros? It's a useful skill career-wise. It's not, threat research and like CTI isn't quite as, doesn't have as many roles available on the market as security analyst maybe, or security engineer, or IR analyst. But it is a lucrative corner of cybersecurity, and is great for those who are passionate about it. So there are, very, I think, exciting, strong career opportunities in the space of threat research. And a third one is the people. The people in threat research are some of the most passionate, interesting, curious people you'll ever meet. They come from all variety of different backgrounds. So few of them are like, found a direct path straight into CTI. Everyone's got some stories, as to what what piqued their interest and why they do it. So you'll work with some of the most intelligent, interesting, and like in terms of the way they think, their background, very diverse minds enter the field of CTI, and all of them bring something fun and interesting to the table. Now, the cons are similar. The cons that it never stops are like, if you're really passionate and you need to keep up, which sometimes I think many of us in the world of threat research do, you might sacrifice a good deal of personal time because it doesn't stop. The outpouring of information constantly is as much a pro as it is a con if you'd like to maintain a social life, for example.
I think you've nailed the number one there, which is it drags you in and drags you in and drags you in and drags you in even more. There's once you're in this security as a whole, I think emotionally, physically, it takes so much of your time, but there's good reason for that, and you want to give as much as you can to the whole industry. So I think it's a fair point, probably the most salient. Just coming to the back end of the episode, Nick, could you talk a little bit more about Flare? You touched on it earlier. You're obviously doing some really impactful stuff here. What's the sort of overall mission and vision going forward? What's the future hold for you guys?
The Flare is as a tool has done an enormous amount of good for our customers. Actually finding, detecting, and preventing the threat actors we track from successfully doing whatever it is they'd like to do, take over some account, execute some campaign. We help on all parts of the cybercrime, chain of attack and economic monetization fronts of cybercrime. So what's next for us? I don't know. The only things I can think of are things we're not ready to share. You might have to kill this question from the recording.
Yeah, fair enough.
Like everything I want to say is like market affecting for us.
Yeah, well, that makes sense. Listen, got to be clandestine about the new developments of the new projects, but listen, it sounds exciting, and I'm sure it'll be something we get to hear about in due course as and when you're ready to share. So, totally appreciate that. Look, for any of our listeners who want to stay connected beyond the platform, beyond the podcast, obviously LinkedIn. Where else can these guys reach out to you?
Yeah, LinkedIn's great. I have a LinkedIn. Flare has a LinkedIn. We have a website, flare.io, and you can get to also our Discord. This is a great place to chat with Flare through our trainings website. It's flare.io. We'll put the link up somewhere, flare.io/trainings, maybe in the comments. We do free community trainings. There's no fee to get in. There's no nothing. Anyone can attend and learn about threat research, about cybercrime, about the dark web, about ransomware groups, about whatever it is we are teaching in that course. These are 2-hour trainings. They're taught by very, very passionate instructors. We have a lot of fun doing them. And then we have discussions afterwards in the Discord. But the Discord's also just for discussion among, CTI professionals or people interested in the space or people interested in the world of threat research in general. So I invite one and all to come hang out with us there.
No, that's awesome. And I think when we do release the episode, Nick, when we put it out maybe on LinkedIn, it might be a great time to, in the comments and the response, to share that link, and we can then promote it accordingly on the platform as well. So yeah, fantastic. Well, look, huge thank you. Great insight, fantastic sharing of knowledge, and I'm sure the community and all of our listeners will have loved today's episode. If people want to continue the discussion and as usual for further engagement, as always, join the Secure CyberConnect community. We offer collaborative solutions across tech and security to all professionals at no cost. And as we've talked about many times, there's expansive community access, mutual mentoring, networking, exclusive interviews and episodes on our podcast such as this, with panel discussions and masterclasses coming later in 2025. So yeah, thank you so much, Nick. Been a great episode. Loved it. Thank you. If you're struggling with technological, cultural, or talent acquisition challenges, please reach out to the Secure CyberConnect team, where we offer advice and guidance and are here to help.